For science, Friday, March 20th, we finished up chapter 7 yesterday, and we are going to be looking at chapter 8 today. Chapter 8 is continuing talking about ecosystems, but it's talking about changes in an ecosystem. And if you look at the front page, you might think that all we're going to be talking about is man made changes in an ecosystem, things that could be considered catastrophes or problems, like this fire. And then the story that it talks about, which I would like you to read on your own, is talking about an oil spill and how that changed that ecosystem. And it would, wouldn't it? Things that we do, that humans inflict on the ecosystems, do change them. But as you will see if you turn the page, so we're on page 194. The very first section here is called Cycles of Change and Seasonal Changes. So there are natural and created changes in an ecosystem that God created to happen all the time. And we saw, even in the previous chapter, how God made the animals to respond to those. Some hibernate, some migrate. He put changes in for a reason. Everything is a perfect plan. It's not just, oh, isn't it wonderful that we just happen to have fall and winter, and because we have fall and the leaves fall off of the trees, then the trees are prepared for winter, and when it snows, their branches don't break because they're not loaded down, those leaves are not loaded down with snow. Wow, isn't that amazing how it just works out that way? Isn't that amazing that we have a good God that knew exactly how to create the world so that it would work to its best? That's what we do when we study science. We marvel at a creator God who has made everything work together for their good and for his glory. So we see in this section, and I only want you to read today, I want you to start at the very beginning of the chapter, 193, and I want you to read 193 to 195. And read about these cycles of change, seasonal changes, seasons. And I think it's cool, we're even in the book. Look, autumn in West Virginia, okay? Because we're a perfect display of what happens in fall. And we live in a beautiful state. Not every state has the beauty that we have just gotten used to. So when you look out your window today, thank God for what he is doing. And as spring comes on and things become green and I'm seeing birds outside of my window, now that's an encouragement that God makes all things new again. So they're going to talk about 4 seasons, but they're also going to talk about places that may only experience 2 seasons. And when you have a place that only experiences 2 seasons, usually it's a wet and a dry season. And your book describes that as being the temperature does not change very much, but the amount of precipitation changes a lot. The seasons in these areas are based mostly on rainfall, so a wet and a dry. So, and in thinking about that, I want you to look at page 132 in your activity manual. You do not have to do the other side, but it does give you an idea of maybe some things that we'll be talking about in the chapter. But I want you to have as much practice as possible looking at maps and looking at charts and being able to interpret them and use them well. So let's look at this map and then the chart underneath. What do the directions tell you? It says use student text 194 and 195 to determine the differences between regions with 4 seasons and those with 2 seasons. Complete the chart. So, from what I just read in the book to you, we are mainly looking at changes in what? Precipitation. Those that have a big change in precipitation but don't necessarily have a big change in temperature, we're going to write that they have 2 seasons because that would be a sign that they're wet and a dry. If we see not much of a change in precipitation, we're going to assume that they have 4 seasons. Okay, so look at the first one on your page. You've got your page out, right? Bedford, Massachusetts. Now, they've split the year up into 2, May to October and then November to April, okay? Bedford has 4 inches and 4 inches. not much change. Then a 63 and a 34 difference in temperature. So they're most likely going to have 4 seasons, right? Now look at the next one. Chittagong, Bangladesh, 18 inches and 2. And then not even a difference of 10 degrees, 82 and 74. So what are we going to say for those? Look at the difference in precipitation, 18 and 2. So how many seasons do they have? 2. They have a wet and a dry. Christchurch, New Zealand, 2, 2, 48 and 60. Precipitation the same, 4 seasons. Dublin, Ireland, 3, 3. Precipitation the same. Temperature is different. Not a whole lot, but it is different. But our key there is the precipitation. It's the same. So we're going to stick with 4 seasons. Koror, Palau, 15 and 10. And look at the temperature, 81, 81. Temperature is exactly the same. The precipitation varies, not as much as some of the others, but it does vary. So we're going to go with 2 seasons there. Nampula, Mozambique, not even 1 inch, and then up to 6 inches. And then the temperature is 71 and 77. Not much difference, right? So we're going to go with 2. San Salvador, El Salvador, 11 and 1. And then the temperature is almost exactly, it's the same, 74, 74. So guess what? 2 seasons. Now look at the question. Use the map and chart to answer the following questions. What generalization can you make about the location of the cities and the number of seasons they have? So look at your map and look at where the cities were that had 2 seasons. So one was San Salvador, right here. One was Mozambique, which is here. One was Palau. And the other one, I believe, was Bangladesh, which is right there. So what could we say about the ones that that had 2 seasons? What are they close to? The equator, right? So it says, what generalization can you make? That the ones closer to the equator are going to have a wet and a dry instead of 4 different seasons. They're going to be warmer most of the time. Because the other ones you see, New Zealand is way down here. Dublin, Ireland is up here. Massachusetts is up here. They're farther away from the equator than the ones that had 2 seasons. All right, got it? That's a really good introduction to this chapter. Again, kind of a short one today. We'll look at the rest of this section as we go into tomorrow. Have a great day.